I've got a lot of static on mine. You guys, Jerry, are breaking up quite a bit, and I tried to log out and log back in, but it didn't work. I mean, it's still there.
I can hear Todd well.
Yeah, we can hear you great, for sure. Just let us know if you have a problem hearing something specific. Obviously, just ask us to repeat it if that you run into a problem.
For example, right there, Mark, I heard you say if you have a problem, and then you said just, and everything else was clicks.
Wow.
No, I'm not really having audio issues.
No, y'all are coming through really well on my end. And
okay, so any audio issues, if it's coming through for other people, then it's going to have to be on your end. Maybe check your Wi-Fi connection, or try leaving and rejoining. I know, Todd, you've already tried that once.
The reason you were hearing clicks is because he was speaking in a dolphin language.
You know,
is that why we call him Flipper?
Todd, are you online or are you on the phone?
I still can. I'm still getting a lot of clicks instead of voices.
Hey, Todd, are you in the web app?
Or are you
in the desktop app?
I didn't hear you.
Todd, have you downloaded Zoom, the Zoom client, or are you just on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I use Zoom on this all the time. I don't know if it's my connection or what.
I mean, I hate to be that person, but it might be worth restarting your computer. Yep.
He might want to go to phone like I am. Mark, is that clear?
I do have one last computer set up for phone access that we can give you the ID for if you want. I know Jane is also still working on audio issues as well. Jane, can you say something to see if we can hear you?
Mark, one thing that may help is if they turn off their video, sometimes it improves the audio on Zoom.
Sure,
I think it
sure,
has
that's
something
true.
to do with bandwidth.
Right. So Jane and Todd, that might be something worth considering.
I'm not sure Todd got that.
He did not.
You can pause.
Oh, there's Jane. Good.
Yeah, well, we can hear Jane. Jane, can you hear most of what we're saying, or is your connection as bad as Todd's right now?
I just got it fixed.
Oh, perfect.
Run the test, Todd. He probably can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Can Todd hear us?
I doubt it.
I'm as soon as I ran the test, so.
It looks like he is restarting his computer. Sounds like the live stream is working.
It appears we have everybody except for Amy at the moment.
I believe Amy will not be here today.
Okay.
She is in an all-day meeting. But I don't mind delaying a couple minutes if you do, to make sure that Todd is able to hear.
Sure.
So Nick, while we're waiting, I'm sure you've heard the current joke about going into the bar and someone apparently walked into your brewery and said, "I'll have a Corona and 2 Hurricanes." And your bartender responded, "That'll be 2020.
I had not heard that one yet. I'll share that.
Okay.
It's like Todd is doing the join by phone option.
Yeah. He'll be happier.
Says you.
Jane, how are you doing?
Doing well, sir. Thank you. And you?
Well, I'm in the same boat, feeling well. I'd love to get together where we could see each other and have a visit. I miss you guys.
Yeah. I'm gradually getting my voice back, so that's a win.
It sounds much improved. That's great. Jane,
What
how are you
happened to
doing?
your voice, Jane?
Doing well, sir. Thank you. Well, I had a thyroidectomy on March 6th of last year.
Okay.
They clipped my vocal cord. I'm gradually getting my voice back. And I ended up at KU Med with a specialist whom I adore. And after a couple of temporary things, we finally went in and did a vocal cord implant.
Okay.
Well,
That sounds like it's working.
Sounds good.
we have, Jane, we have some personal experience with my wife at Barnes Jewish, similar opportunity, only it was malignant. And so we could probably share some opportunities.
Okay.
Well,
Sounds
they
like
can
it's
do
working.
some amazing things.
Sounds good.
We have, Jane, we have some personal experience with my wife at Barnes Jewish, similar opportunity, only it was malignant. And so we could probably share some opportunities. They can do some amazing things.
Sounds good.
We have personal experience with my wife at Barnes Jewish, similar opportunity, only it was malignant. And
I never know why sometimes these technology things work and sometimes they don't.
It's always frustrating too when it's something that works even for that person several times, and then for some reason on one occasion it just decides it's something goes wrong.
Yeah.
But
I
at
still go
least
back to the 70s. The moonshot. They put those guys on that rocket and shipped them off to the moon, and they were able to communicate. And we can't do it here on Earth with all
it's
the
always
technology we
frustrating
have
too
now.
when it's something
I
that
just marvel.
works
Or did they?
even for that person several times, and then for some reason on one occasion it just decides it's
Must be Kyle.
something
I-
wrong.
I think
But
they pay better.
at least
Back to the 70s. Very probable. They put those guys on. But if you watch the one movie where they threw everything on the table and said, "Here's the problem," the low bidder contractor did square connections on this unit, and the other bidder did round on these. Let's figure how to get them to meet.
Well, I saw the movie with O.J. Simpson. It was all just a big, soundstage
Yeah,
thing.
I think they pay better.
Todd, are you good?
looks like Todd is
I
joined by
am.
phone.
I'm sorry, guys.
Oh.
I'm on the phone. Yeah.
No problem at all. I'm just glad you're able to make it work. Can you hear us okay now?
I can now. Yes. Thank you for your patience.
Of course, of course. Sorry that you were dealing with some tech issues.
All right, I think we're ready to get
Well, I saw the
started.
movie with O.J.
So-
Simpson. It was
Well,
all
the
just
time is now 1:08. The chair calls to order the September 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Kansas
Oh,
Governmental
I'm on the
Ethics
phone, yeah.
Commission.
No problem at all.
In
I'm
your
just glad you're
materials,
able
you have
to
today's
make it
agenda
work. Can you hear
and the
us
minutes
okay now?
from the August 26th
I
meeting.
can now. Yes. Thank you for.
Can
your
anyone
patience.
identify any
Of course,
corrections that
of
need to be
course. Sorry
made
that
to
you were dealing
either?
with some tech issues.
Yeah, in the minutes,
I think we're ready to get
Well, I saw
started.
the movie with O.J. Simpson. It
let's
was
see,
all
on
Time is
page
now
4,
1:08.
we've got a
The chair calls to
motion
order
by
the
Miss
September
G,
23rd,
let's
2020
see,
meeting of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission.
No problem at all.
we've
I'm
got a
just glad
motion
You have
by
today's agenda
Commissioner
and the
James
minutes from the August
for a
26th
fine,
meeting.
but I
now.
don't
Yes. Thank you.
see that we
Anyone
made a
identify any
finding that there
corrections
was
that
a
need to be made to
violation.
either?
with some tech issues.
Should we include that her motion
Ready to get started?
was both for the finding of a violation and a fine? Motion by Miss G.
My recollection is we corrected that
Okay,
and
we've got a
did
motion
the
by
finding
Commissioner
and then went back
James
to her fine
for a
recommendation.
fine.
That's my
I don't
recollection of it,
see
John.
that
But
we made a finding that there was a violation. The minutes, but did the minutes reflect that?
does not appear to.
Okay, we probably need to make that correction.
Okay, thank you,
My
John.
recollection is we
Can
corrected
anyone
that.
identify any other corrections?
the finding and then went back to her final.
Hearing none, does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the minutes and agenda with that correction that John has noted?
The minute, but the minute so moved.
And I would second. This is Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Probably need
Any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to identify
Aye.
the other corrections?
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Aye.
The motion passes. Make a motion to approve the minutes. Welcome, everyone. The first item on today's agenda is Executive Director's Report.
And I would
We have two
second. This is
items.
Kyle.
The first is the Statement of Substantial Interests update.
Any additional discussion?
Of a total of 5,557 individuals who are required to file SSIs, currently all but 14 people have now filed those documents. We did allow a little bit more flexibility, you might recall, due to the pandemic. But even with that additional flexibility, there are only a few people remaining that we are working on tracking down. So but almost everyone, I believe that's something to the order of 0.2% of all filers that are left to resolve their SSI. I can take any questions about that before moving on to my next item, if there are any. Due to the pandemic.
Outstanding job.
Even with that additional flexibility, we can thank Roxy for doing a lot of the groundwork on tracking down all of these people and making sure that they get filed and give them any assistance they need in that effort. It is around that time of year, it is a tireless job.
Thank you, Roxy.
Thank you,
And remember that, Mark, when we get to the budget side.
Well, guess what? That's where we're at now. So.
Outstanding job. All right.
All right, so the next item is the budget request for commission consideration. A subcommittee met on this item to consider the budget, and they took an in-depth look at evaluating the budget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the highlights in this document you have, note a couple of small corrections in the document, and we had some last-minute changes because of mostly due to our rent contract coming in after the budget submission. Or after subcommittee consideration. But I'm going to answer any questions, then I'm going to yield to the subcommittee if there are any comments, if they have any, and then open the floor for any commission discussion on the budget. So the first page is just an overall look at the budget broken down by category, and you'll see that our budget stays relatively flat in terms of what we were approved for in fiscal year 21 at $734,000. It drops in, our request is actually about 20,000 less than that, and that's largely, I'll get into some details about why. Fiscal year 22, it starts coming back up to where our normal budget request at 724,000, and then in fiscal year 23 it goes up to 734,000. So after we were approved last year for a budget of 734,000, and the way our budget evaluates, we end up back requesting that number again in fiscal year 23. So we actually don't go up at all from our request over this time period. You'll see the funding source on the bottom. There are only two places that the agency receives any funding from. The state general fund is typically about 65% of our budget, sometimes as high as 70%, though that percentage has declined in recent years. And I'll take a little bit of a closer look at that later on as well. The only other source is our fee fund, which is primarily sourced by candidate, lobbyist, and PAC fees, as well as fines and penalties. On page 2 is the look at fiscal year 21. So this is the current year that we were in. You'll see the budget actually is a decrease of $16,573 from what we were approved for. This is because after the budget cycle ends, if the legislature approves a budget, the governor signs it, but if there are concerns about the ending balance in the if there are concerns about the ending balance in the state general fund, the governor has the ability to order an allotment, which is essentially a post-budget process cut to agencies. And for our agency, that totaled $20,756. So we had to find those cuts very quickly in fiscal year 21. Thankfully, we did a little bit here and there. Part of the allotment plan required that we delay the salary raises that we had put into the budget for 2 employees. But thankfully, we were able to find most of the rest of the reduction because IT billing ended up changing how they billed us as an agency, resulting in savings of nearly $14,000, which was very timely for when we needed those savings to occur. Mr. Briggs, if you wouldn't mind muting your phone for the moment until we get to your item, just making sure that you're not breathing into the phone too much. I apologize for that.
So let me ask you a question.
I'm sorry, sir, but you don't have the floor yet. When we get to your item, I will let you know.
So what do you want me to do with my phone? I'm on a phone. You want me to hang up? Is that what you're asking me to do?
I'm just asking you to
Can you call
mute.
back in?
I'm just asking you to mute your phone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Fiscal year 22 is on page 4. The numbers in that top table needed to be updated. I apologize, but the actual request is now 723,764. Ultimately, this is a change of 6,453 above the fiscal year 21 request, and this is almost all in salaries and wages. Partly this is because we were approved for some salary increases for a couple employees in fiscal year 21 that we were required to delay a little bit in fiscal year 21, but those raises will apply for the full 12 months in fiscal year 22. So you'll see a little bit of an increase there. Additionally, part of the governor's allotment plan involved a capers change that is fairly highly technical, but results in an increase to our budget of $2,500, as well as health insurance, which increased by about a little over $2,000. The rest of the changes you'll see broken down, itemized in contractual services, but mostly come out in the wash. There's a decrease actually there of almost $3,000. Additionally, part of the governor's in fiscal year 23, the budget, the request is almost 734,000, which is an increase of 10,084 above our fiscal year 22 request. This increase is almost entirely due to 3 categories. Postage costs typically increase. Postage costs typically increase during the statewide election year. Data entry temporary assistance occurs in those years as well, which we typically budget about $3,000 for, and building rent goes up by about $1,200, by almost $1,300 actually, and that's the item that we just received immediately after the subcommittee meeting. On page 7 is our fee fund balance. You'll notice a couple things about the balance. Number one, in that fiscal year 20, the actual amount we received $24,783 in fines and penalties. This is would be a very high year. Typically, our fines and penalties aren't quite that high. From fiscal year 21 through 23, we budget 0 in receiving fines and penalties because the agency does not rely upon fines and penalties to create our budget. And that has been a traditional course of action for the agency that has, as far as I'm aware, has always been the case. The budgeted years, you'll see that are typically higher than actual expenditures just out of necessity, and this means that it looks like a reducing ending balance in the fee fund. I'm not actually concerned about those balances. The bottom of the page, you'll see the funding mix by year. The bars indicate the total budget request, and then the line is indicating how much of that budget comes from the state general fund. That amount was decreasing for quite a while, and two years ago in the 2018 legislative session, the legislature provided us with an increased portion of our budget from the state general fund. The final item is the reduced resource package. In fiscal year 22, the governor has required the Ethics Commission, as well as any other agency that receives state general funds, to prepare a reduced resource package amounting to a 10% reduction in funding from the SGF. That is an extremely high cut for the agency. The agency does not have a lot of discretionary expenditures. It's just not the way that we budget. As a result, there are not a lot of categories that we have available to cut. You'll see that breakdown, which includes postage and printing, both of which would be, if we'd received the reduced resource package, would be reduced below historical levels. I'm unaware of a time in the last decade when those numbers would have been that low. Commission meeting costs would be rather dramatically cut. All computer replacements would be halted. We would not have a court reporter for any hearings. Miscellaneous expenditures would have substantive reductions as well. And all of that does not even get to the full $45,000 cut that they would be requesting, which leaves us with $26,875 unaccounted for, which we would simply fund from the fee fund. This is not an ideal outcome, to put it. We would not have a sentence at the end of this report indicating that I strenuously oppose the use of commission fee funds for any purpose aside from actions in support of our central mission. It is my view that this reduced resource package or any reduced resource package of this size for the agency would functionally be utilizing our fee fund to restore the ending balance in the state general fund, which is not which obviously is not the agency's central mission. And I oppose the use of the fee fund for that purpose.
No, but the fee fund doesn't, we need to understand, the fee fund doesn't belong to us. It's done for accounting purposes only. And of course, historically, the legislature in tight budget years has simply collapsed the fee funds in many agencies and taken the money and put it in the general fund. But we need to understand that our fee fund does not belong to us. It belongs to the state and is done for accounting purposes only. And
that is true. I will note that our fee fund is typically it's typically one of the few that even when there are statewide sweeps from fee funds, which haven't occurred in a while due to several legal challenges, even when that has occurred, the Ethics Commission typically is not subject to those sweeps because of the nature of our agency.
Right. And
that is true. I will note that but I definitely appreciate the comment and clarification.
Thank you.
I can certainly take any questions at this time, or I can yield to the subcommittee if there are any comments from the subcommittee that took an in-depth look at this budget. Even when that has occurred,
I would say being involved in that meeting that we had a very lively discussion and a very complete explanation process from Mark. And subject to the other committee members, we recommended that the budget as set forth by our director be approved, but subject to questions and review by the full commission.
I concur.
I would say being involved in that.
Do any commissioners that were not on the subcommittee have questions?
Very complete explanation process from Mark. And subject to the
Mark, do we need a motion to approve the budget?
Yes, we would.
Okay. Do any commissioners wish to make that motion?
Subject to questions and review. I would move we approve the budget as proposed by the director.
Thank you, Jerry. Do I have a second? Do any commissioners that were not on the subcommittee
I'll
have
second
questions?
that.
Thank you, Patty. Any further discussion? Mark, do we need a motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion to approve the budget, say aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Do any commissioners wish? All opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. The next item of the agenda is civil penalties, beginning with candidates and treasurers.
I certainly appreciate everyone taking the time to dig into the budget. I know it is not always the most interesting content, but I know that it is highly technical, and I appreciate everyone taking all of that time to review the documents that have been available. The next item, as indicated, is civil penalties. We have, again, we don't need a motion for these. These are assessed automatically by statute. The amended January 10th report resulted in penalties of $130 for both Kevin Straub, a candidate for city council, and his treasurer, Monet Straub. For the July 27th report resulted in a few penalties of $300 for Forrest Emke, the treasurer of the Kansas People's Actions Political Action Fund, $300 for Holly Denton for the Morton County Democratic Central Committee, $300 for Tim Tarkelly, the treasurer of the Neosho County Democratic Central Committee. The amended January 10th report was required from Esau Freeman, the treasurer of the Sedgwick County Democratic Central Committee, and was assessed $300. Penalties of $300. There are a few lobbyist civil penalties due to the largely due to the deadline that just passed for this month. That is Dan Morgan, who has two clients. He was 1 day late for $100 each, so $200 for Dan Morgan. And Jennifer Basinger, who was 7 days late for $400 for one client. There are also That's all the civil penalties that we have to assess for today. Again, these are just notice and they're assessed by matter of statute.
Got it. And the next item on the agenda is we have civil penalty waiver requests.
That is correct. We have 5 requests for civil penalty waiver. The first is Oscar Arenia. He was a candidate for state representative, and we assessed $400 for filing of the late July report. This was assessed at the August meeting. He indicated this is the first offense that the individual would have received. He claimed that he had put the document in the mail on July 21st. Our records indicate that it was received on August 6th, which it's worth noting that that is after the primary. The July report. He just indicates that he's requesting a waiver of the $400, but you do have the 3-paragraph writing from the individual there as well. The document in the mail on July 21st.
Did he send it on the 21st, as he said?
6th, which I cannot. All I can tell you is when it was received. I have no other confirmed
There was
indication.
no postmark on it or anything?
I'm unaware of anything indicating that original date. But you do have the 3-paragraph writing from the individual. It's also worth noting that by operation of statute now, obviously this doesn't matter for whether or not a waiver is provided, but it's worth noting that the statute does allow that if it's placed in the mail under certified mail, or then if it's placed in the mail in certified mail prior to the deadline, then it is not actually late. This was not placed in the mail in certified mail. It's also worth noting that by operation of statute, I hope one day we can move to electronic filing to help eliminate some of these concerns. But it is entirely possible that they did intend to comply and simply resulted in some post office delays. That is a possibility, and I cannot confirm either way. Then it is not actually late. And as a result, I have no recommendation on this item. It's also worth noting that by operation of
Mark, is it your recommendation we make a motion on each individual waiver request, or do we have any reason to group them?
We will group Watt and Wasilek because they are a grouped, that is a candidate and treasurer, and they have the same waiver request. But otherwise, we'll handle them individually.
Which ones are you grouping?
As a result, I have no recommendation. The second and third ones, Susan Watt and Dan Wasilek.
Okay, not the first one.
Correct. We're not going to group Irenia.
No, I'd move that we waive his.
We will group
fine.
Wasilek because they are.
There's no evidence that he didn't drop it in the mail on the 21st.
But otherwise, we'll handle them individually.
I think it. Which ones are you grouping? Goes beyond the pale if we
the
impose
second
a
and third ones,
$500 fine
Susan
on him.
Watt and Dan Wasilek.
I'll second that.
Not the first one.
Correct. We're not.
Thank you,
gonna group
Ken.
Irenia.
Thank you, John. We have a motion to waive the full penalty. Is there any additional discussion?
There's no evidence that he didn't.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion to waive the penalty, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jane. The motion passes. The next 2 items are Susan Watt and Dan Walsick. Is there any additional discussion?
Yes, we'll handle these in combination because Susan Watt is the treasurer for Mr. Wasilek. The treasurer was assessed $100, then the candidate was assessed $1,000 for late filing of the July report. This was assessed at the August meeting. You see the 2-paragraph email received from Susan Watt. It's indicative that it's indicated that the treasurer had some very severe family health and medical related concerns. This is typically the category we provide the most flexibility in. I would recommend a waiver on this item.
Mark, I'm not seeing that in my materials.
2-paragraph email received from Susan Watt. It's after Arenia included a number of bank information as well. So it is after the bank information, but before Mr. Briggs's email.
Okay, I got it now. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. I would recommend a waiver on this item.
Mark, I'm not seeing that.
So we have
I would
Mark's-
move we waive.
Thank you, Jerry.
It's after Arenia included a number of.
You're approving, yeah, your motion is that we waive. Is that correct, Jerry?
So it is after
Correct.
the bank information.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Before Mr. Briggs's email.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay, I got it now.
The
Sorry about
motion
that.
is to fully waive, as has been recommended by Mark. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion to fully waive on both counts, say aye.
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 The motion is that we waive. All opposed, say nay.
No, I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you, Patty. The motion is. Were you a no, Jane?
I was a
As
no.
has been recommended. Okay, thank you. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is Arlen Briggs to fully waive.
Mr. Briggs was assessed 3 separate penalties, all at the August meeting. He was assessed $220 for late filing of an appointment of treasurer form, $300 for late filing of a statement of substantial interest, $1,000 for late filing of the July report. All of these reports have been filed now. I believe this is the individual's first civil penalty, at least according to the records I'm looking at. You have actually 2 writings from this individual. You have the waiver of fines that is provided. Commissioner Kroll, I apologize, but if you wouldn't mind muting your mic, there's just a lot of background noise wherever you are at. Thank you. You have 2 different writings from Mr. Briggs. You have the email that is provided for you in your materials. You also, about 30 to 40 minutes ago, received another email from the individual that's lengthier that also includes some discussion on these items. Mr. Briggs is also present by phone, and if the chair does want to, the chair is not obligated to provide an opportunity to hear from the individual, but if the chair so would like to hear from Mr. Briggs, we could do that as well. He is present by phone. I will note a couple of items before we take the further comment. The part of the issue is an assertion that the individual attempted to enter the office on June 1st, but was told he could not due to the pandemic. Our office was closed up until May 28th. On May 28th, we reopened to small groups. I've talked to the people in my office and indicated no one, to their memory, everyone who was in the office did not remember ever waving anyone off that day. However, our inner door is always locked, as many of you know who have been in the office, and has to be buzzed in. And we did have a piece of paper on the door indicating that we can only take limited groups in the office. So it's possible that there's some confusion there as well. Mr. Briggs has been very responsive very recently, but I will note that before the penalties were assessed, I don't know that the individual sought to reach out to our office in multiple other ways to try to resolve these issues. But you do have some extensive writing and context from Mr. Briggs as well. But it's up to the chair whether or not you would like to provide an opportunity to hear from Mr. Briggs at this time.
Yes, if Mr. Briggs is present, the chair does find it desirable to hear a brief comment from Mr. Briggs.
To reach out to our office in multiple other ways to try to resolve these issues. But you do have some extensive writing and context.
Mr. Briggs, are you with us today?
But it's up to the chair whether or not you would like to provide an opportunity to hear from Mr.
You may have to specifically unmute whatever Mr. Vice Chair present. The chair does find it desirable to hear a brief comment from Mr. Briggs.
Mr. Briggs, can you hear us? We're getting a lot of echo from your side.
Mr. Briggs, are you with us today? You may have to specifically unmute whatever.
We could move on to the last waiver request while Mr. Briggs attempts to resolve the audio issue. And if he is, he's able to speak, then he can speak. A lot of echo from your side. Then we could take that request at that time.
Mr. Briggs, it sounds like we're just getting an echo from whatever device you're on.
We could move on to the last waiver request while Mr. Briggs attempts to resolve the audio issue. And if he is, he's able to.
Yes, Mark, if you want to proceed with the next item, go ahead.
Then okay. We can take the last item, the last waiver request is Randy Unruh, a candidate for county commission. He was assessed $650 in August. Due to a late filing of a July report. It's a first-time offense. The rationale is that he simply does not check his rural mailbox address. We simply send all these documents where people are registered. I would object
Do you want
to
proceed with the next item?
this
Go ahead.
waiver request simply because this is not typically a reason, simply not checking the mail is not a reason that the commission has historically provided waivers. Due to a late filing of the July report. We do not need a motion if the commission chooses to not grant the waiver, of course. The rationale is that he simply does not check his rural mailbox address.
Does anyone on the commission wish to make a motion?
I would object
If not,
to
forever hold your peace.
this waiver request simply because this is not typically a reason, simply not checking the mail is not a reason that the commission has historically provided waivers.
Okay, well, if Mr. Briggs does chime in, we will allow him to resume a discussion on the civil penalty waiver requests. But otherwise, Mark, do you want to proceed with the paid for attribution statement waiver request?
Sure, we can do that very quickly, and then we can do hearings until Mr. Briggs is able to resolve his audio. We only have one paid for request. It's the Stop Coleman pack. They had created a Facebook page and did not have the proper paid for attribution on it. We reached out to them, they figured out the problem and added it. We typically provide first time waivers for paid for violations. My recommendation would be to find the same here and again to grant the waiver provided to the normal course of the commission.
But you'll send a letter to him and it'll be part of his file.
That is correct, and the letter is fairly strongly worded, indicating that future offenses can be subject to fines in excess or up to $5,000.
I'd move we do that.
Recommendation would be to find the same here and again
I will second that.
grant the waiver.
Thank you, Ken. The motion is to approve the waiver requests. Is there any additional
You'll
discussion?
send a letter to him and it'll be part of his file.
That is
All in
correct,
favor
and the
of
letter
approving the
is
motion, say aye.
fairly strongly worded,
Aye.
that future
Aye.
offenses can be subject to
Aye.
fines in excess or up to
All opposed, say nay.
I'd move we do
The
that.
motion passes. Mark, did you want to proceed with public hearings, or did we want to go to executive session?
Since it is past 1:30, it'd be my recommendation to move on with public hearings at this time.
Okay.
And after the hearings have concluded, we can revisit Mr. Briggs's civil penalty waiver to see if he is back on the line again at that time.
Okay. Would you like me to proceed with the hearing on Troy Smith, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Solbach, please do.
Okay. My name is John Solbach. I've been appointed to be the hearing officer in this matter.
After the hearings have
Case
concluded,
number
we can revisit Mr.
682,
Briggs's civil penalty waiver to see if he is,
Mark Skoglund
back on
versus
the line at that time.
Troy Smith. Would you like me to? I hereby call this hearing to order. Troy Smith, Mr. Chairman. Is Mr. Smith with us? Okay.
Yes, sir.
My name is John. Okay. Are you with counsel or are you pro se?
Pro se.
Pro se. Okay. I'll just give a summary of what's going to happen here. This is a complaint which will be automatic. Our findings will be automatically, find a violation will be automatically sent to the Attorney General of the county or district attorney as appropriate. We can recommend that no further action be taken.
Hey, Mr. Solbach, let me pause you for a minute. It appears as if you have Mr. Briggs on the line. Mark, do you want to briefly resume our discussion so that we can allow Mr. Briggs to move on?
Brett, do you want to comment on procedure here since the hearing for Mr. Smith has technically initiated?
Hey, Mr. Solbach,
Well, at this time, if the hearing officer is desirous to move for a brief recess, we could take up that matter, or, I can move for a brief recess for us to do that, and then it'll be up to the hearing officer whether he wishes to grant that.
Yeah, if the motion, the council is asking for a recess, without objection, we'll take a recess.
If the hearing officer is desirous to
Yes, and it's really only out of audio concern in the fact that we're on Zoom format right now. We understand that Mr. Briggs did have some technical difficulties before, but it appears as if he's on the line now. Mr. Briggs, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay. We have before us on the agenda a civil penalty waiver request, and the chair is allowing you to provide additional context and commentary if you desire. Is there anything you wish to say in support of your civil penalty waiver request? On the line now, Mr. Briggs, are you there?
Well, what I would say is, as I indicated in the last one that I sent today, coming back from unloading beans, I was on the road and I stopped at a place where I could get internet access. I am a farmer from the month of June through basically the end of October, or basically from the middle of March through the end of October. I'm extremely busy. I am also trying to provide for families of other outside my own so that they can have means to survive in this time. I got 2 calls last night, as late as 10 o'clock, I believe it was, trying to get me to help them. I'm an entrepreneur. I will not deny that. I do have some money, but I try and keep a very low amount just because I feel like it's better to help people than it is to help organizations that, you know, when you really get down to it, I understand the letter of the law. I'm not sure I understand the spirit of the law because of the way that PACs and everything have gotten around the rules. There's an interest in knowing what people spend. I agree with that. I did go to June 1st again. I went to the office. I tried to get in. The individual sitting at the front desk there looked up and didn't come to the door. I saw then it said it was closed, so I turned around and left. Since then, I've been extremely busy. I generally get up around 3 o'clock in the morning, go to bed somewhere around 9:30 or 10 at night, and sometimes wake up in the middle of then talking to other people about how to get things done, because I provide advice to them also. My goal is not to try and escape the fine, because the fine speaks for itself. It's a result of irrefutable evidence. I didn't file them because of 2 things. One, I wanted to understand exactly what they were trying to accomplish. They may do that, but by the same token, I felt it was more important to spend the money on people rather than Kansas bureaucrats. Not you guys so much, but by legislators creating things that really have no value. When you look at them, what are they again? I am willing to pay the fine. I don't dispute that. But I wish that the ethics committee would go back to the legislature and say, here's what's really broken.
Okay.
We need to be able to do these things.
Thank you. You know what?
Let you make your own.
Do commissioners have any
It
questions?
is going to be what it is. It's going to be what it is, and I will follow up and do what I will do. So with that said, I wish you all a good day.
How much is the fine?
The total penalty is $1,520 across 3 penalties: $220 for the appointment of treasurer, $300 for the SSI, and $1,000 for the July report.
Do commissioners have
I'd
any
move
questions?
that we cut the fine in half and we pay within 30 days.
So with that said, I wish you all a good day.
John has made, are you making a motion, John? Is
I'm
this?
making a motion.
Okay, yes, John has made a motion that the fine be reducible by 50% if paid within 30 days. Does anybody wish to second that motion?
I'd move that we,
Leo is going to help me get back down there. I called him.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. I didn't hear by, was that Ken?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Is there any additional discussion on the current motion on the table that's been seconded? By 50% if paid within 30 days. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
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 Leo is going to help me get back.
All opposed, say
down there.
nay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. Thank you, Jane. The motion passes. Mr. Briggs, the fine has been reduced to 50% if paid within 30 days. Otherwise, the fine will remain the same. Thank you for joining us
And
today.
does it-
The motion, say aye.
So do I need the check out to who and to where do I send it?
Mr. Briggs, if you would reach out to our office when you have a moment, I know you're very busy, but we can definitely help you with that as well.
Okay.
All right, very well, thank you.
And I would
Mr.
remind Mr. Briggs that he does have a hearing on this afternoon as well. So if you'd like to stay on the line for that.
Do I need the check? Okay. Where do I send it? I'm going to be traveling to get another pickup or another truck doing combines, so I'll hurry.
Mr. Chair, it's my recommendation on it's typically the report at issue and complaint 687 has been filed pursuant to past practice. It's my recommendation to dismiss that complaint anyway. Since Mr. Briggs is present on the phone and has a very busy schedule, we could take that up and resolve however the commission would like to resolve it now.
I'd move that we dismiss it.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, thank you,
it's
John.
my recommendation on
Okay, the motion has been seconded to dismiss. Any additional discussion on the Briggs matter?
Has been filed pursuant to past
Hearing
practice.
none,
It's my
all in favor of
recommendation to
approve the
dismiss
motion to
complaint
dismiss
anyway.
the complaint
Since Mr.
that's
Briggs
on
is
today's
present on the
agenda
phone and has a very busy
involving Mr.
schedule,
Briggs, say aye.
We could
Aye.
resolve however the commission would like to resolve it.
All opposed, say nay.
I'd move that we dismiss it.
Okay, the motion is passed.
Are we done with our recess now?
Yes, I'm going to turn it back over for you, and I'm also going to apologize to Mr. Smith for the delay. Hearing officer, Commissioner Sobot, please proceed.
Okay. Well, I hereby call this hearing to order.
Here, let's take him back in.
Mark Scoveland versus Troy Smith. And a summary of how we're going to proceed, Mr. Smith, is the complainant's attorney is going to open and present evidence subject to, your cross, if you're appearing pro se, you may open after the complainant's attorney opens, or you can reserve your opening until after the complainant's evidence has been presented. Then you may present your evidence, and it'll be subject to cross-examination. Commissioners may have questions of both the complainant's attorney and you, but you'll be given the opportunity to present evidence. This hearing is on the record, so it'll be important that you answer questions verbally so that your responses can be reported. And then after the hearing, the commission will determine its findings and, if appropriate, apply. Mr. Counsel for the complainant, would you state the appearance on the record so it'll be important?
Yes, Brett Berry appearing on behalf of Mark Skoglund, Executive Director for the Commission, who also appears. The respondent, as my understanding, appears in person via Zoom pro se.
Okay. Do we, Judge, would you do the honors of
Brett Berry appearing on
swearing Mark Skoglund and Mr. Smith?
As a preliminary matter, the respondent, as my understanding, appears. I would ask the hearing officer to inquire if the respondent disputes the allegations in the complaint, because I haven't heard anything from the respondent, and his appearance here today is the first communication I've had.
You don't have to say that you dispute the complaint. You can contest it if you would like, but you heard Mr. Berry's question. Would you like to respond, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, this is, I mean, up until the other day, this is my first time being aware of this, not of the filing for January, but of the hearing in general. So this is, again, all new to me. Mark called me. We were able to talk via phone. I no longer and have not made it the address that I guess I ran under. So I'm here. I'm easy to get a hold of. I watched your last session. I'm very easy to get a hold of. So I'm here. So that's what I would like to add into.
The question is, do you dispute that you violated the law by failing to file the report?
Well, I guess my negligence is not understanding, because I wasn't, it was up in the air if I wanted to run again this year, and I wasn't under any intention, as I had decided I was going to move out of the area.
The question is, do you dispute? Are you saying that you don't dispute that you failed to file?
I don't know. I guess by default of negligence, I did not know. So that we were still required for that last up until when I I got a little bit of a small insight back in May. I reached out to a state senator, Kevin Braun, and him and I had spoke and had a conversation about it. I reached out to your guys' office around May 10th and got no response back. So I didn't think that I had to file it. That wasn't ready again.
Mr. Berry, why don't you proceed with the proffer?
Well, I certainly could present evidence if the hearing officer would like. I also want to note that my connection to Zoom has dropped at least twice in the last 15 or so minutes. So if that happens to me, I apologize. I've inquired of Sherry to provide me the call-in information in case that happens. I'll call back in. But if I could also present a proffer if the hearing officer would wish a proffer instead.
Yeah, just present a proffer of what your evidence would show if you did present the evidence.
In a hearing on this matter, the commission would have the testimony of both Mark Skoglund and the
just present a proffer of what your evidence would show if you did present the evidence.
Testimony of Jen Schneider, who handles our local elected offices reporting, that the respondent was a candidate at all times relevant to the complaint, that during the course of his candidacy, he was required to file a January 10th, 2020 campaign finance receipts and expenditures report, that report was in fact due on January 10th. After January 4th, 2020, there were efforts to secure the filing of that complaint, which did not result in its filing. And to date, the witnesses would have checked with the Secretary of State's office most recently as of today, and that report is still not on file. So I would submit on the basis of the evidence that the report is not on file, that it has not been filed, and that Mr. Smith has a responsibility as a candidate under the Campaign Finance Act to have filed that report.
Mr. Smith, do you have any questions of Mr. Berry with respect to that evidence?
Yeah, so I have reached out.
This is not your opportunity to address the commission. This is your opportunity to question Mr. Berry. If you have a question, ask the question.
I don't have a question at the moment.
Mr. Smith, do you have any questions? Is that a no? Berry, with respect to that evidence. Okay. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Berry? This is not your opportunity to. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Smith, you now have the floor. You may proffer what evidence you would present from witnesses or from yourself to the commission in your defense. Okay. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Berry?
Upon watching the last session, I would like it known, make it known to the commission that my secretary or my treasurer at the time was given information to do it. She had the Act Blue account, which would have all of the last donors. I have recently, and if the commission would accept it, because I have no access to the donor list now. I have actually teamed up with House Representative Jeff Pittman's wife, Holly Pittman, to complete as much as we can report. We worked on that the last couple of days. However, we just don't have the names and addresses that would be needed to complete that. As my treasurer Charday had access to that, and I did not. I do not have access still to this day. I had attended her birthday party earlier this year. Again, it was made known at that birthday party that when it was brought to our attention, I had said something. Hey, can we finish? Because I didn't know what the extent of us not filing January of 2020. Because I personally didn't understand that. Why would I have to still file a report as I was not running again? I will not sit here and talk bad about Miss Charday. However, I will provide this insight as she wanted more of a relationship than a working relationship, if that can be as proper as I could say in a hearing. She's still a great person. I don't want to discredit her at all, but it was just a relationship that I wasn't ready for at that particular time, which I think diluted or polluted, the working relationship. So it has been where she has, by her own choice, not wanted to file this report, and it has now made it to where we're at this hearing today, which I believe is very unfortunate. If I had the means of the donor list, I would have that list to you guys, or that paperwork to you guys, since upon talking to Mark. However, we have a half report without those donor lists to give you guys a complete report. But I have reached out to people to try to, which I believe is very unfortunate, get that report, because it is as important to me as it is to you guys to have that done, because I do not want to leave on any bad terms. However, I did not, I was not fully aware that we had to do another report, as our last report in March would have ended that special election.
Mr. Smith, let me see if the commissioners have any questions of you. Are there questions for Mr. Smith
Get that report, because it is as important
from the commission?
as it is to you guys to have that done, because I do not want to leave on any bad terms.
Seeing none, Mr. Berry, would you like to close?
Mr. Hearing Officer, may I inquire of Mr. Smith briefly?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, do you have, what is your current contact information? Do you have a current address that you could provide to the commission?
I'm actually, I mean, I don't want to put my business out. I'm actually in the process of moving or that of that nature, if I could say, like homeless. I don't really want to say it on the thing, but okay. So I don't have a permanent address at the current time.
Contact information. Do you have a current address? As soon as you do have a permanent address, would you represent to the commission here under oath that you would provide that address to the commission's offices?
Of sure, of course, if that nature, if I could say, like,
all right. And we do have a phone number for you, because I know Mr. Scoglin has talked to you by phone. So would that still be a good phone number to reach you at if need be?
Of course, of course.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Smith. I just wanted to try and secure contact information so that we don't miss each other like it sounds like there has been on occasion. And we do nothing further for you, because I know Mr.
Okay, Mr. Smith, would you like to make a closing argument, or have you said pretty much all you needed to say?
Of course. I mean, I've said all. I think it's the unknown of what I did not understand or what I wasn't aware of. I apologize sincerely in reference to the situation. On all aspects. However, I do want to conclude that I do have a portion of that report which is going to be without information that I have no access to.
Mr. Berry, does your client have any recommendation with respect to a fine? Should we find a violation here?
Yes, and I would ask Mr. Scoglin to make the comments in regard to a fine recommendation.
Typically in these situations where we have a still outstanding report, the structure of our fine is typically a rather large fine that is reduced substantially upon if two factors are completed within 30 days. Number one, the proper filing of the report. I understand in this particular case, this would be the proper filing of the report to the extent that Mr. Smith has information available to him. So essentially reporting to us everything he has. And number two, a payment of the lower fine. So we've had in the past, this structure has been something like $5,000 reduced to $100 or to $250 or $500 if paid within a certain time period. Typically, the amount of that reduction is dependent upon the essentially what is necessary to deter the individual from further conduct, where they might file a report late or simply not take deadlines seriously with the commission. I have no indication that this individual is not taking this seriously. I think that so my typical recommendation would be to follow the normal structure. I don't have a specific recommendation as to how much to reduce the amount to, however.
Mr. Smith, do you have a recommendation to the commission should we find you in violation? Would you concur with Mr. Scoglin's recommendation?
I mean, I would concur with Mr. Scott. He's been nothing but pleasant. All of these have been nothing but pleasant and fair. It's just unfortunate. I'm a single parent. My daughter's 9 years old, and I have no help, no resources to that matter. So I am doing what I can as as a father, but also as a civil servant to do my part. So, it will be tight. I don't know how much I would be able to come up with, but however, whatever you guys deem necessary, I will do my best to oblige.
Okay. Are there questions from the commission for either Mr. Berry or Mr. Smith?
Mr. Hearing Officer, if I actually have one quick follow-up, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I just also want to make the commission aware that Mr. Smith also has a civil penalty of $300 assessed in this matter regarding to late filing. So he already owes $300 to the commission, which is worth considering as well. Mr. Hearing Officer, if I actually have one.
I have a question, John.
No, go ahead.
I just also want to make the commission aware that Mr.
Sir,
Smith
will you
also
be
has a
able to
civil
get these
penalty of
reports in
$300
30
assessed
days?
in this matter.
Yes, ma'am. So I have access. Holly Pittman, which again is House Representative Jeff Pittman's wife, she reached out to me. She's been trying to help me resolve the matter. She has. We have finished the report without the donor names and addresses, which Charday or the treasurer would have had access to. I have no longer have access to. I didn't have any control. I was literally just the candidate and was, acting as so. So I have no access to it, which is unfortunate. I learned life lesson learned.
So is that a no?
I can turn in what we have. I can turn it. We've got the bank statement. We've filled out the Schedule C or the Schedule A through D. We've filled those out to the best of our ability. So I can turn those in, but it just wouldn't have the completion of the donor list of the last couple donations.
Are there further questions from the commission? If not, then we will open the matter up for discussion and findings, and whether or not and how much of a fine to impose if we find a violation.
John?
Yes.
I will motion to find a violation as alleged in the complaint.
If not, then it's been moved. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Open the matter. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
John?
Motion carries. Is there a motion with respect to fine?
John, I will also make a motion on this. I'm going to motion, even considering the $300 fine, to assess a fine of $500, reducible to $250 if the report is filed within 30 days, and reducible to $100 if filed within the next 5 business days.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
John, John, I will also make a motion on this.
I would second that. Kyle Kroll.
Been moved and seconded that $500 fine be imposed, reduced to 250 if done within, if report is filed within 30 days, and reduced to $100 if filed within the next 5 business days. Is there discussion? All in favor?
I would second that.
Well, excuse me?
I got a question. I've got a question. This is Todd. What did you say, Nick, with respect to the 300 that is outstanding? Does that incorporate it into your motion? I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
Yes, I said considering, and yes, by that I meant incorporating into the fine, $500, reducible to $250 if paid within 30 days, further reducible to $100 if paid within 5 business days, or alternatively reduced to $100 if paid within 5 business days.
I apologize if I could clarify the motion if the hearing officer would allow.
Sure.
So I just want to be sure. So if the motion were granted and the document was filed within 5 business days, then the total amount owed by the individual would be $100, including both the fine and any extraneous amounts from the civil penalty. So essentially, your goal is to waive any amount of the civil penalty in addition to having a lower fine if they file sooner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
We have a motion and a second, I believe. Is there further discussion?
I have I have a question.
Both
When you
the
say
fine
file the
and any
report,
extraneous amounts from
is
the
that
civil penalty. So
a
essentially, your
complete
goal is
report or
to
just a partial report
waive
based
any
on
amount
what
of
we
the
have?
civil penalty.
Based on what
in
Mark
addition
said,
to
it
having a
sounds
lower
like we're
fine,
acknowledging to the extent that he has
if they file sooner. Is that correct?
information. So we need the report
Thank you for
filed
that
as
clarification.
best as it can possibly
We
be
have a
done.
motion and a second, I believe.
We would ask for Mr. Smith's continued cooperation. Should there be any follow-up or should there be any significant material defects in the content of the report as it is filed. We trust that Mr. Smith will operate in good faith and do whatever he can to provide the most accurate information within his capability as soon as possible.
I have a report to you by 8 o'clock.
Should there be any follow-up or
Is there further discussion?
One point of clarification too, does that include having the fine?
We trust that
Paid.
Mr. Smith will operate in good faith and do whatever he can to provide. No, as I have said to Todd, I believe the $300 is incorporated into the total fine amount. So in effect, we are granting a civil penalty waiver request of sorts on the presumption that the fine is either paid within 30 days or alternatively paid within 5 business days.
So payment of the amount is part of that within that 5 days within that time period, correct? That's Brett's question, I believe.
So in effect,
Is there further discussion?
granting
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
So payment of the amount is part of
Mr.
that
Smith,
within the 5
that
days within that time period,
includes
correct? That's Brett's question, I believe.
the hearing. I assume that we're going to recommend that no further action be taken when this is referred to the prosecuting authority. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Without objection, there'll be a recommendation, no further action be taken. The hearing on this matter is now closed. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to proceed with the hearing on Carol Brewer?
Yes, please do so, Commissioner Solbach.
Okay. Is Carol Brewer present?
I am.
Okay. Are you here by yourself or with counsel?
By myself.
Okay. I'm John Solbach. I've been appointed to be the hearing officer in this matter, case number 686. Mark Skoglund versus Carol Brewer, and I hereby call this hearing to order. Do we have a consent order or anything in this matter? Brett?
No, Your Honor. In
By
fact,
myself.
I'm not sure what the respondent's position is in regard to whether she would be contesting the complaint.
Would you like to comment on that, Ms. Brewer?
Yes. I I didn't receive it. We have a PO, or it's not a PO box, but it's a box.
Okay, the question is, are you contesting the complaint?
She would be
Yes.
contesting the complaint.
Okay. Would you, if we just proceeded on a proffer of
Yes.
the evidence from the prosecution and that proffer from you, would that be acceptable?
I didn't receive it. We have a PO,
Okay.
or it's not a PO box, but it's a box.
Then Brett will have the right to open and present his proffer.
Yes.
And you can open after he opens, or you can reserve your opening for after he completes his proffer.
Okay.
Then you may proffer your evidence and and make an opening if
Yes.
you've reserved that. And his proffer and your proffer will be subject to cross-examination by each other and questions from the commission. This hearing will be on the record, so please answer questions verbally.
Yes.
And then after the hearing, we will deliberate and determine our findings and, if appropriate, a fine. I would like you to be sworn, Miss Brewer. Judge, would you do the honors?
Ms. Brewer, I'm by audio only, so I do not have video, but I would ask that you Dan.
Yes.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in the matter now in hearing be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Berry, would you care to make an opening statement and proceed? Make your opening statement.
Yes.
Yes.
May it please the commission. My name is Brett Berry, appearing today on behalf of Mark Skoglund, the Executive Director of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission, in regard to complaint number 686, Mark Skoglund versus respondent Carol Brewer. The single allegation in the complaint is that the respondent did not file a statement of substantial interest, and based upon that failure to file, that she has violated KSA 46251 and or 247A and 248A3, which is subject to a penalty under 46251 up to a Class B misdemeanor. At this time, I would submit that the evidence would show that the complaint, or the statement of substantial interest.
Just a second. Ms. Brewer, would you like to make an opening now, or you want to reserve it until after his proffer?
I will reserve it.
Okay, go ahead, Brett.
Okay. So in a hearing of this matter, it would be the intent of the Governmental Ethics Commission to present the testimony of Jennifer Snyder, who works with local candidates, and it would be the intent of the commission to present the testimony of Roxy Valdivia, who works with people subject to the Kansas governmental ethics laws, who are required to file statements of substantial interest. And she would testify that she had made efforts to secure filing of the statement of substantial interest from Carol Brewer, but those efforts were not met with success, and that as of current time today, that statement is still not on file with the Kansas Secretary of State's office, based upon her contacting the office and checking the same. So that would be the testimony of Ms. Valdivia, and that would be the evidence the state would intend to present.
Okay. Ms. Brewer, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry.
Ms. Brewer, would you have any questions of the council for the complaint?
No. How many times did she contact me and speak with me?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Ms. Brewer, do you have any questions? You have further questions?
No further questions.
Okay. Are there questions from the commission of Mr. Berry on his proffer? Of the council for the complaint. Okay.
No, how many
Ms.
times
Brewer,
did she
you may
contact
open and
speak with
proffer
me?
your evidence.
I do not know the
Okay.
answer to that question.
Okay, where I live
further
at,
questions?
there No is further a questions. box and everybody gets their mail placed there. They do not come to your home and they don't have you sign for anything. So everybody's mail is just placed in the box. And the address is the same, it's just the letter. And so mine reads A14. Well, there is another person here that has a mailbox similar to mine, but it's H14 and D14, and they were bringing my mail to me. So some of the mail that I had received, I may have received a week or two late. And during that time, my father had some health issues and was in the hospital. And at that point, we were actually trying to find placement and for him because he was due to be released. And then I received the call from her right after he passed away. And she stated, I know that you guys are going through things. And I'm like, okay, well, let me search again through what I have and I'll get that submitted. And she clarified with me that it is online and I could go online, in which I did. I went online, I found it, I clicked the link, and when I clicked the link, it gave me an error. I went back online maybe about a week later, and it said that it's unavailable. And it didn't give me an error at all. It just said it was unavailable at that time. And so therefore I couldn't file it, but I didn't find the letter either. But yet I found the letter stating that it hadn't been filed. And it is definitely on me as far as, I didn't call the person back because I didn't have the number, but I could have called Topeka and I could have found out when things kind of settled down. So that's the end of my statement.
Okay. Are there questions from Mr. Berry?
Briefly, Mr. Hearing Officer, Ms. Brewer, did you understand that you had an obligation to file a statement of substantial interest as a candidate?
Not really. I mean, it was just told to me that I needed to sign it and return it. But I didn't really I thought that I had completed all the paperwork that Topeka needed. Honestly, I was kind of unaware that I had to continue on filing different paperwork other than my financial reports. Not really. I mean, it was
do you recall receiving a letter from Mark Scotlin, Executive Director, dated July 21st, 2020?
Topeka needed. Honestly, I don't recall right off the bat. No, I don't recall. Different and filing different paperwork other than my financial reports.
If I was to submit to you that the commission mailed a letter dated July 21st addressed to Carol Brewer, 2201 East MacArthur, A14, Wichita, Kansas, 67216, would you have any cause to disagree with that?
I did receive letters from him, but I don't know in which, I have a letter that told me that I would be going to a hearing. And that's what I have.
All right.
Any further questions, Mr. Berry?
No, nothing further at this time.
Are there questions from the commission of Ms. Brewer?
Letters from him, but I don't know.
Yes, I have one
Ms.
question.
Brewer.
I have a letter that
Go ahead, Jane.
I would be going to a hearing.
When you filed to run for office, do you recall getting a packet of information from the ethics office that included some booklets that explained all your responsibility?
Nothing further at this time.
Are there questions
Yes,
from the
I
commission
remember
of Ms.
getting a packet. Yes.
Yes, that's all I have.
Are there further questions from the commission of Ms. Brewer?
No.
Ms.
When
Brewer,
you
your
filed
mail
to run for
circumstance,
office, you recall getting a packet of
are you in
information
some type of
from the
a
ethics office that
community
included,
that has, as you say,
some
one
booklets that
common
explained
mailbox,
all your responsibility?
compartmentalized by letter and
Yes,
number
I remember
denomination?
getting a packet. Yes, I am in, I live in Stonegate, but everybody gets their mail, but they've been switching up
Ms. Brewer,
the mail carrier
circumstance,
for the last few months, and
are you in some type of
it just
a
kind of, I get other,
community that has, as
other
you say,
individuals'
one
mail,
common
and
mailbox,
our neighbors will bring us
compartmentalized by
mail
letter
that have been
and
given
number
given to
denomination?
them, so it's kind of a little confusing at this moment. And we have made complaints with the post office, but and we really don't get too much, back when we do complain.
But that is your customer method of receiving mail. Everyone receives mail in the
Yes.
same manner. There's nothing
Yes.
unusual about that approach.
That have been given
Mhm. All right, thank you.
given to them, so it's kind of
Are there further questions from the commission?
and we have made
Yes,
complaints with the post
Mr. Officer.
office,
Ms. Brewer,
and we really
you
don't
may
get
have
too
said
much,
this and I missed it.
back
How
when we
did
do
you
complain.
receive notice that you were to appear at this hearing today?
But that is
It
your
was
customer
in the mail.
method of receiving mail. Everyone receives
Okay,
mail
thank
in
you.
the same manner.
Mhm.
There's nothing
Yes.
Are there
unusual
further
about that.
questions from the commission?
All right,
I have a
thank you.
question.
Are
How
there
many
further
different
questions from the
units are
commission?
in your residence?
Yes,
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Officer. Ms. Brewer,
I don't
you
know.
may have said this and
I
I
have
missed it.
no
How
clue.
did you
It's a
receive
lot.
notice
It's
that
an
you were to
entire
appear at this
community.
hearing today?
It was in the mail.
Is this a retirement facility area like
Are there further questions
modular
from the
homes
commission?
or what?
Yes.
I have a
Uh-huh.
question.
Yes.
How many different, I'll rephrase it. How many people would you estimate you have
Oh my gosh.
essentially a pooled collection of mail with?
I don't know. I have no clue. It's a lot. It's an entire
Or rather,
community.
instead of people, how many other residences? If there's a pooled
There's
mail,
in mine,
Is
it's
this a
about
retirement
30.
facility area like modular homes or what?
Yes.
Are there further
Uh-huh.
questions from the
Yes.
commission?
I'll rephrase it. How many people would you estimate you have
If
essentially
not,
a pooled
Mr. Berry,
collection
would
of
you like
mail
to
with?
close?
It's a lot.
I believe Mr. Barry is trying to reconnect due to his an internet issue at his house,
In
but
mine,
he also
it's
has
about 30.
has phone information. He may reconnect that way. So if we would hold for just a
Are
moment.
there further questions from the commission?
I'll rephrase it. How many people would you estimate you have
If
essentially
not, Mr. Berry, would you like to close?
If I may ask a question of Mr. Skoglund
I
while
believe
we're
Mr. Barry
waiting,
is trying to
Sure.
reconnect.
what is
due
the
to
total
his,
fine?
an internet issue at his house. But the maximum fine that could be assessed is $5,000. So if we would hold for just a
Okay,
moment.
thank you.
Sure. From the commission. If not, Mr. Berry, would you like to close?
One question to Mark, if I might. Mark, has she been provided with a paper
Sure.
form to file the substantial interest?
Typically, we do provide paper forms to many individuals. However, that I do not have direct
Okay,
knowledge
thank
of
you.
that, and so would hesitate to testify accordingly. If that question is requested by the commission, I would direct the commission to
One
send that question to
Mark, if
Roxy,
I
who
might.
is also available
Mark, has
today.
she been provided with a paper form to file the substantial interest?
Could Roxy
The opening
answer that
statement
for us?
Typically, we do provide paper forms
still
to
has
many
not yet
individuals.
filed.
However, that I do not have
Information.
direct knowledge of that,
Yes,
and so would
information
hesitate to
was sent out.
testify
Okay.
accordingly. If that question
There were
is
several attempts, even by
requested by the
email.
commission, I would direct the commission
And
to
that
send
information
question
contained
to
a blank
Roxy, who is
form?
also available today.
Is there the
Could Roxy
The opening
answer that
statement
for us?
We do provide paper forms
still
to
has
many
not yet
individuals.
filed.
However, that
Information. Yes, on the first mailing. Yes,
so would
information
hesitate to
was sent out.
Ms. Brewer still with us?
Yes, I am still here.
Several attempts, even by
Ms.
email.
Brewer, do you have that form? Did you receive it?
That information
No,
contained a
I
blank
didn't
form?
receive it, and that's why I had went online to try to find it, and it gave me an error form on the first one, and then on the second time I attempted, it said it was not available. It was no longer available.
Ms. Brewer, have you requested of the
Yes, I am
agency a
still
paper
here.
form so they could send it to you since you say you do not receive the one they mailed?
No, I didn't. And that's why I had went online to try to find it, and it gave me an error form on the first one, and then on the
Are
second
we
time I
still waiting
attempted,
for Mr.
it
Barry?
said it was not available. It was no longer
You
available.
are. I will give him a call and see.
Have you requested of the agency a paper
I'll have
form
him
so they
join
can
by
send it
phone
to
if he
you since
cannot resolve his internet
you
issue
did
at his
not
home.
receive the one they mailed?
No, I didn't.
While we're waiting, I've got a question for Ms. Brewer, if it's okay.
Sure.
Mhm.
Ms. Brewer, what led you to search for the form that you needed to fill out by way of the internet?
You are. I will.
She called me on the phone. And
I'll
she
have him
told
join
me,
by
and
phone if he cannot resolve
and she
his
said,
internet
she
issue at his
told
home.
me I can find it online on the website. And so that's what led me to go to the website and search for it.
Sure.
Ms. Brewer, what led you to search for the form that? Do you know when that was, when you had the discussion and you tried to find it online?
She called me on the phone. It was right after I talked to her. She told me, and it was
And
during the same week.
Find it online.
Approximately when was that?
So that's what led
Oh
me
my
to go
gosh.
to the website and search for it. It was in July.
Thank you. Do you know when that was, when you had the discussion?
Are we still waiting for Mr. Barry?
It was right after I talked to her.
Rhett is almost back.
It was
He is.
during the same week.
I think at this point he's just trying to join by phone. He had an internet issue at his home this morning that
Yeah.
has been
It was in
causing him to
July.
have some intermittent issues, but he is almost.
Are we still waiting for Mr. Barry?
It was right after I talked to her.
Rhett is almost back. He is.
During the same week.
I think at this point he's just trying to join by phone. He had an internet issue at his home this morning that has been
It was in
causing him to
July.
have some intermittent issues, but he is almost.
I guess while we're waiting, I'll ask another question if that's okay, Mr. Officer.
Sure. Go ahead.
Ms. Brewer, if you, how long have you lived at your current address?
Approximately a year.
And has mail been a problem that entire time?
Yeah.
Did you?
Well,
while
probably
we're
not
waiting,
the
I'll
first
ask
4
another
months.
question if that's
And
okay,
then we
Mr.
started
Officer.
having
Go ahead.
issues out of the mail system, unless they
Ms.
were bringing
Brewer,
it to your
if
home.
you-
But then they
how long have
even
you lived
stopped,
at your
like,
current,
even when it's like a
address?
certified article, they just place it in the box. They tear
Approximately
off
a
the green
year.
thing and place it in the box. You don't sign for
And has
anything.
mail been a
It's
problem
just
that
placed in
entire
there.
time?
Yeah.
Did you provide instruction to the commission at any time to deliver material in some other manner in light of the difficulties you were having with your mail?
No, I was unaware that I actually could. They just place it in the box. They tear off the green thing and place it in the box. You don't sign for anything. It's just placed in there.
John, if I could follow up on that. Ms. Brewer, my sister-in-law has a dual residency. Do you have any other address where you receive mail other than this address in Wichita?
No. I was unaware that I
Okay.
actually
So it
could.
wouldn't be a conflict of it going to another address and not getting to yours?
No.
Okay. John, if I could follow up on that.
Are we still waiting for Mr. Barry, Mark?
Has a dual
As soon as he returns, I'm sure he will let us know. But yes.
Is it, can you get him on the phone if he can't?
He has the phone information to connect to an account that I have set up. That's the Kansas Ethics account that you see in the window that you see the connecting to audio. That's what that is. As soon as he returns, I will attempt again to contact him. But yes.
Is it, can you get him on the phone if he can't?
He has the phone information to connect to an account that I have set up. That's the Kansas Ethics account that you see in the window that you see the connecting to audio. That's what that is. As soon as he returns, I will attempt again to contact him. But yes.
Can you get him on the phone if he can't?
He has the phone information to connect to an account that I have set up. That's the. It appears that Mr. Barry has been able to rejoin us.
Okay.
As long as the
Barry?
connection lasts, yes. I apologize.
there were a couple of questions of Ms. Brewer while you were gone. I might ask Mark if you would summarize those questions and answers for council before he closes.
It appears that I apologize. I don't have the information. I was working with Brett to try to gain reconnection. I was paying attention to the questions and answers, but certainly do not have a summary of the available information.
She essentially said she's always had trouble with her mail, and
I apologize.
And she doesn't have any other address where she receives mail. In any event, Brett, would you like to close?
Briefly, I would just submit that the report remains unfiled. It's prima facie evidence that the respondent has failed to file the report. She's cognizant of problems with her mailing, and she had at least received our July 21st letter in regard to the complaint. And so far that had not prompted any response other than her appearance here today as far as getting it filed. So I would submit that the violation in fact is supported by the evidence, and we would ask the commission to find that the violation occurred.
Do you have any recommendation for penalty?
I would defer to Mr. Skoglund specifically. It's much the same as Mr. Smith earlier, but he may have some specifics.
Mr. Skoglund?
I would agree that the structure that we typically have for non-filed reports remains typically the same, that there is a larger penalty at the outset unless the document is filed and a reduced fine is paid within a certain time frame. This typically has been very effective at gaining compliance, and I view this as a beneficial approach. I do think that there is a factor in opposition here, and that is that while the public certainly has a right to a candidate's statement of substantial interests, information at this point, this is rather late in the process, and obviously after the primary and anything like that. So typically I would view this as information that the public certainly had a right to earlier in the process. So I do believe that some form of a small fine, even if the document is filed, would be appropriate. However, of course, I understand issues outstanding with the mail. I would encourage the commission to follow a similar course where they have a larger fine unless the document is filed and a reduced fine is paid within a certain time frame.
Ms. Brewer, would you like to close?
So I do believe that some form of a
I just, the document was not filed. I understand that, and I'll accept what you give me.
Do you have a recommendation for a fine?
Follow a similar course where they have a larger
$100, and you email me the paper, and I can fax it back.
Would that include the requirement that you get the statement filed?
The document was not filed. I understand that. Yes. And I'll accept what you do.
All right. Are there any recommendation for a fine? We'll now entertain a motion for commission action, discussion, and a vote on the violation and the fine. Does anyone care to discuss such things?
I would make a motion to fund a violation as alleged in the complaint.
Is there a second?
I would second.
There's been a motion and a second to find the violation. Any discussion? Commission action, discussion, and a vote on the violation and the fine. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I would make
Opposed, nay.
a motion to fund a violation.
Motion carries. Is there a motion with respect to a fine? There's been a motion and a second to find the violation. Any discussion?
I would follow the example of our
Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
chair in this matter of the last proceeding. I would move that we assess a fine of $500. However, that fine be reduced to $100 if Ms. Brewer has the form filed and proof of filing within 10 business days of this meeting.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Is there discussion?
There is discussion.
Jane?
You know, I did a quick internet search while we were sitting here waiting on Brett, and it took me right to the form. You know, I think these candidates have to take the responsibility for satisfying the requirements of this commission, and to find excuses, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. And it took me right.
Is there further discussion?
You know, I think
Jane, did you wish to make a motion to amend or to make a substitute motion?
No, the requirements
Okay.
of this
All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
to find
Aye.
excuses,
Aye.
kind of
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Ms. Brewer, you heard the motion and the outcome, and that is all the business we have in this hearing, and the hearing on this matter is now closed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner Solbach.
Thank you.
Ms. Brewer, you heard
And just to clarify, Brett and Mark, with the Briggs complaint dismissed, does this conclude our public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe it
Yeah,
does.
I believe that's all our hearings.
Have a great day.
Okay. All right. Well, the remaining item is executive session. And just to Kyle, do you wish to make a motion? And Mark, with the Briggs.
Kyle is not available to do so. My understanding is someone will be standing in as substitute to me this month.
I believe that's all our hearings.
Have a great day.
Who is substituting for Kyle? Well, the remaining.
You have
Commissioner
the
Moore, I
next-
believe you are muted,
Executive
so I hope you haven't gotten too far through the motion.
I have not. I was asking how long we will need for this executive session.
Kyle is
Let's
not
start with
available to
15
do
minutes.
so. My understanding is someone will be
If
standing
we
in
need
as
longer than
substitute
that,
to me
then we
this
can always
month.
reconvene, but it would be better to start lower than what we need than to start higher and have us have to sit there for 20 minutes. So I believe you are.
You're optimistic, Mark.
I hope you haven't. I'm doing what I can.
I move to the commission recess to open meeting until 2:50 p.m.
Let's
for
start with
executive
15
session,
minutes.
discuss matters limited to confidential
If we need
complaints,
longer
staff
than that, then
present,
we can always
participate in the
reconvene,
discussion.
but it would be
The KSA
better to
75-4319B1
start lower than what we need than to start higher and have
and
us have to sit
B2
there for 20
and
minutes.
KAR
You're optimistic,
19-6-2.
Mark.
I'm doing what I can.
I move to the commission recess to open meeting until 2:50 p.m.
Does anybody wish to second that motion?
Oh, sorry.
I would second that emotion.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Any additional discussion? All in favor of approving the motion to enter executive session, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.